So let's start from the beginning. How'd you first get into music?
Me personally,
Yes.
I mean, basically, since I've been a little kid, well, ironically, it's my mom's guitar right here. So my mom is partially responsible for getting me into music. Ever since I was a little baby, she was playing, the music of the day, which was like James Taylor, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Paul Simon, Simon and Garfunkel, the Beatles, Rolling Stones. So yeah, she just through osmosis, I heard all this music, and lots of other stuff too. Like she was really into Roberta Flack and Carly Simon. Um, and so it was that kind of sound that initially, I guess, popped in my ear. But my relatives are musicians as well. So, like my grandmother, one of my grandmothers was a concert pianist in in Austria in Europe. So she had that classical kind of piano training since she was a little girl. And then so I must have somehow inherited a little bit of that. Not saying that I could play like she could at all, but just that interest and passion and drive. And then my other grandmother was a folk singer, also in Vienna, Austria. So she was, yeah, like a folk singer. And back then, that was a different thing. That was more like rural towns in the Austria-Hungary Empire. Like they just had their own music, and their songs, yeah, just their own folk songs. So she was well versed in all that. And my aunt was a professional singer. So I mean, I guess through like osmosis and maybe just being predisposed to liking music, and I just started playing. Yeah, this is my first guitar. Still have it, but that's probably the only thing I have from my youth still. And yeah, it just went from there. Like after I started playing guitar, my first influences were bands like Social Distortion and Agent Orange and Fishbone, Madness, English Beat Specials, even like the first Red Hot Chili Peppers record, how crazy, just like a lot of out there music and a lot of punk rock, The Descendants. Obviously, you were just talking about Milo. So, their first record was huge in my world. And it influenced me in so many ways. And, eventually I found a lot of different bands, whether it was Bad Brains, Minor Threat, or like, other East Coast kinds of hardcore bands or West Coast bands like the Vandals, Shattered Faith, the list goes on and on. And there's like from the different scenes, I would grab different nuggets. So like the Oxnard was known for Nardcore. So, I got into some of those bands. I think the first show I ever saw was Ill Repute, and they were a Nardcore band. Um, and, LA punk rock bands, just all the bands from that era. And yeah, I started off learning to play punk rock and then reggae and then ska at some point and just kept building.
Word. Let's get into how'd you find yourself in Buck '09?
Sure. So I joined the band in 1992, and they had started about maybe 9 months before that. And they had different members when they first started, a different singer, different guitar player. Our bass player, our original bass player, Scott Kennerly, founded the band, and he got our drummer, Steve Bauer, and our sax player, Craig Yarnold. So the four of them or no, Scott, Steve, Craig are like, were there at the very beginning. They brought in Dan, trombone, and then they brought in Pebs, our singer, and they brought me in shortly after that, and Tony about the same time. And we found each other through a local weekly newspaper called The Reader. Um, that was, obviously pre-internet. So it was like, that's kind of how you found out about shows, found out about bands, and found opportunities for things. So yeah, we just came together in Scott's father's electrician shop, and just, they already had probably about 10 originals when I joined. And it was cool because Pebs joined, a few months before me, and he had his own lyric sheet or book of lyrics. So like the songs from that, the beginning of Bucko 9, like they had changed from when the previous incarnation of Bucko 9 had played, in that, me and Pebs specifically interpreted the songs a little differently. Pebs rewrote lyrics and melodies. And so then, yeah, we just branched out from there, and we just vibed off each other really well. We became really good friends, and it was just fun to rehearse and write songs together. And those songs became the first album, Songs in the Key of Brie.
Word. Tell me a bit about that. Were you on that demo, the Buck Naked demo?
Yeah, I played guitar on two of the songs, but most of the guitar tracks were Scott, our bass player, and Pebs, I think, played acoustic on Picante Ska, which was like an instrumental that we played. But yeah, I play guitar on Few Too Many, and which from that tape, and one other, I think it might be like Happy Stay, I can't remember. But yeah, we ended up re-recording all those songs anyway. But yeah, that was like, no, one of my first recording experiences with those guys, when we made the demo, Buck Naked. It was this little studio in El Cajon. I think this guy named Dave Nestor owned it. He was notorious, like known in the San Diego scene as being like one of the studio owners where people would go to, they're always wanted to go to Nestor's. I think Sprung Monkey is a band that is from here that recorded there extensively, and a lot of bands did. So yeah, it was good times, man.
Word. And like you said, you guys did re-record most of them for your next album, Songs in the Key of Brie, right? Which was the
Yeah,
first album that I had got from you guys, well, which was the debut album, I guess, right? I didn't get it till around, I want to say 96, 97. I was late to the game. But
cool.
I also grew up in St. James, Missouri, which, like, it's amazing that anything even made it there. We didn't even have MTV until the late 90s.
Right on. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the kind of thing I love about those days in the 90s, when we first released Songs in the Key of Brie. It was on this tiny, tiny label. I mean, in hindsight, we should have just self-released it. But yeah, we went on tour with like a bunch of our CDs, and we would sell them at our shows, and we would, sell them to some of the record shops in various places that we were at. And so maybe one of those found its way into your collection, but that's totally cool. I love that.
So What do you remember? Like, what sticks in your mind the most when you think of the Key of Bree days?
I guess I would just say a lot of do-it-yourself DIY style promotion and playing a shitload of shows. Like that would have been, we released it in 1994. So at that point, we're already hitting it hard and we're playing everywhere we could, all through San Diego, LA, all through the whole state of California at that point, easily, and in Arizona, Vegas, Utah. And we would just keep spreading our wings. We were used to getting no, no, you can't play the show. No, 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 you can't be on our label. So we were just like, screw it. We're just going to have fun. We're going to do it ourselves. And we started jumping out on more and more tours. And so Kia Bree was pretty amazing for us because it was just such a grassroots release for us in terms of our distribution. Basically, was us, in our band, and then there was like some distributors at that time would buy like a bunch of our stuff. Like I remember, I think they're called Sounds of California. Is this distributor that a CD distributor? Keep in mind, there was no digital back then, and so he would specialize in bands from California, ska bands, punk bands. And I remember him saying to us once, he's like, yeah, I paid my rent for several months just from distributing your CDs. I was like, wow, why are you making money and not me?
uh, but yeah, that's a great album.
We've seen your pretty movies in violent abduction. We blast your mind destruction, inferior connection. We take no weak resistance and throw it in your face. We need no introduction for mass annihilation.
It's a great album. So was your next one, Barfly, which had quite a few covers on it. Tell me about Barfly and why so many covers?
Sure, man. No, it's a great question. So after we released Songs in the Key of Bree, and like I was saying, it was mostly self-distributed because we released it on a tiny label that doesn't even exist anymore. They're basically friends of ours from the San Diego scene that wanted to release, or they released records. So anyway, we were really frustrated. We had still a lot of material that we could record, and we had become friends with this guy Curtis, who owns a hardcore label based out of, well, originally based in Boston, then San Diego. This hardcore label called Tang, and he had a great distribution, at least the way that under our impression of like, okay, that's a label that if we put a record out on Curtis's label, it'll get out there. About the same time, like I was saying, we're playing every opportunity, and one of those opportunities was we played like some local fans here in San Diego, their prom. They got a hold of us and they're like, dude, we want you to play our prom. And we agreed, but we had to have more material than we had in our set. So we started learning covers just so that we could play longer. And I think we each picked out a cover, and the ones that ended up sticking were the ones on Barfly, although we had been playing Wrong'em Boyo since the beginning for the most part. But, like Pasadena was one of those songs that we kind of made into our own little thing. And what other song? Oh, obviously Sound System. We've been playing that one, and that goes over live really well. And so, yeah, we had a bunch of covers. We even covered Dr. Kitsch. And we by Judge Dredd, who is this, the Benny Hill of ska back in the kind of like the two-tone era. He was beloved. And yeah, man, we just recorded whatever we had left at that point, and we were excited to put out Barfly because we had distribution, and it was more of a legit label. So that was very helpful. And then through Tang, we ended up putting out our records in Japan, and we got asked to go fly there and play Japan. And that was incredible. So yeah, during that whole Barfly era, a lot of touring. and just a lot of shows and just figuring out what opportunities would work for us and just diving on them.
You the next year you also released on Tang was the Water in My Head EP.
Yeah. So we had gone on tour with Agent Orange in 95, it must have been. And so on tour, our horn section would play Miserlou with the Agent Orange guys. And so when we got back, we had some studio time booked in LA somewhere, and we're like, dude, we want to record Miserlou with Mike Palm. So, we recorded it, and it's still, you could still hear it on all the digital streaming services. But yeah, that was kind of like part of the same sessions that Barfly came from. It was just kind of extended, like maybe several months later, where we got more studio time. And so we recorded, that's where we recorded Dr. Kitsch. We recorded original called Milk. I'm just trying to go off memory here. Positively Shelby, and Miserlou. And I just released it as, because our song Water in My Head had been getting a lot of airplay on the radio here in San Diego, and then on some other stations around the country, before, the Spotify and streaming music services. It's like, if you get your stuff out on college radio or commercial radio somehow, it was a win-win. So our label, Tang, Curtis wanted to be able to like send radio stations or whatever. I don't even, just like a single, here's their single, Water in My Head. And so the single became like a little EP.
Word. And it was a great EP. Right? Mm-hmm. I find that bands release more EPs nowadays than albums, which is kind of frustrating and awesome at the same time, because the turnaround, you can put out more EPs in a quicker amount of time. However, I'm an album person, right? I like to sit down and listen to something, and an EP is just a little too short. So, I like it when they shove all the EPs together on one CD. That's always my favorite.
Yeah, man. Like, I totally know what you mean. And I think, the difference between those days and current day is simply just the way music is listened to nowadays. Like if you're listening on Spotify or, Apple Music, it's like a lot of playlists, a lot of, I don't know. I think the emphasis is on releasing more and more music. I mean, we're releasing an album, our full-length album, actually in a couple weeks, a week from this coming Friday, and that's 14 new songs. So we still have that mentality of like, let's release a full-length record. But I totally get why bands might just release a bunch of stuff periodically, every couple months. They might release a new song or a new EP. I see the Slackers, who's, kind of one of our contemporaries. I love the Slackers, and they release stuff a lot. I think coinciding with their touring schedule, they'll release a few songs. And a lot of bands like that do that. And I totally love that, it's interesting. I mean, long gone are the days of that whole album cycle, like record a big, 14, 15 song record, release it, have this big marketing push, go on tour. I mean, that still happens, of course, but as a band, you're always, the way I look at the music, having a music career, if you will, is you want to play live. So like, at least from my perspective, or like Buck09's perspective, we're a live band first and foremost. We also write and record music, and that's part of what we do. It's like, it's not everything we do, it's just part of it. So I think the best thing is when you can play in front of people that haven't heard you before or heard of you and they want to see you, and then you play for them and hopefully have a great performance, and then lo and behold, there's some new tracks from this band that you just heard. And so I don't know, it's like that's just where music's at these days, and who knows, in another 30 years it's going to be totally different in some ways. And who knows, maybe we'll go back more towards physical releases, like maybe the Spotify's of the world will just turn into something else, kind of like how MTV used to show music videos, and now it's like reality TV focused. Maybe that's just how like Spotify and Apple Music will go. Like something will take off. Like, I mean, let's just pretend it's podcasts, or who knows, whatever, something will take off, and then those entities will focus on that something, right? And so, and just leave music in the dust. And then us musicians will be like, well, that's totally cool. We know how to record music still, and we can release records. We can release CDs and cassettes, if you know what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how that comes around.
So the sound when I'm in my hometown, yeah. No place I'd rather be. My town, my street. Give me peace of mind that can't be beat, yeah. My town, my street. Give me peace of mind that can't be beat. Give me peace of mind that can't be beat.
But no. So, let's move on to 28 Teeth. Like, that one was on TVT, right? Jump Off a Tang. How did that go down?
So basically, it was just a continuation of touring, a lot. Barfly started to get, like, people started paying attention to it, and it started selling really well, I guess. I mean, it opened a lot of doors for us. And at one point, there was a lot of labels that were, I guess there always is, the labels looking for new talent. And at the time, the Southern California ska scene and punk scene was ripe. I mean, so many bands. And so we, lucked out, and a label approached us. Several labels approached us, actually, but the one we ended up going with was TVT. And we thought, okay, this is even better distribution, better promotion. And it just kind of like synced into where we were at as a band. We were always on tour. Whether it was the United States or Japan or wherever we could go, Canada, Mexico, whatever. And so, yeah, that helped us continue to break out. And it was just, at the time, we had come off tour, we had been writing, but then we locked ourselves into a rehearsal studio for probably a few months. I want to say like 2-3 months, and wrote and polished a batch of songs. I think it was like 18 songs. And yeah, we picked our favorite 14 for 28 Teeth, and went to this really cool studio up in Berkeley, California, to record, called Fantasy. Fantasy is no longer there, but it was a studio that was built in the late 60s, early 70s, by Saul Zaentz, this guy who owned a label that released the Creedence Clearwater Revival records. And so those are really successful. So he parlayed that into a whole recording studio and a label. And yeah, we were lucky to get an opportunity to record there. Other bands were recording there as well, like Green Day recorded Dookie there. Jawbreaker recorded Dear You there. Rancid recorded Out Come the Wolves there. We recorded there, and while we were recording there, I think Dance Hall Crashers were actually recording there, kind of overlapping with us. I think it was the Honey I'm Homely record they were recording, and just a bunch of other stuff was going on. It was an incredible experience, such a cool studio. And I mean, it's just remarkable how amazing it was. Like, I think one of the things that I remember the most was just that Fantasy Studios had its own reverb chamber that was made out of concrete, and the walls were cast at various angles that were like obviously predetermined by like a sound engineer and an acoustics engineer. So like I would go in there and play my guitar, like acoustic guitar, and it was just like, holy shit, like this incredible reverb, natural reverb chamber. Never ever experienced anything like that before or since. And I guess the what they would do is they would do a line out from a track, like say I was, in mixing, right? So they take a guitar track, for example, and they do a line out from the board into the room, the reverb chamber room, where there was be a mic set up, and then that mic would capture the sound of the track with the reverb, and then that would be captured and brought back into the mix. So it was kind of like a really cool throwback to like the 60s on how, or 50s on how they would deal with a reverb. And there was a lot of really cool quirks about that studio that helped us, like so much just amazing equipment. Like, man, just like these old boards, these old consoles, all this old outboard, all gear and effects and equipment. They had a house engineer that like wasn't necessarily a sound engineer as much as he would repair things. So they had like a guy who would solder together, fix things on the spot. And it was just incredible. It was remarkable. And at the time, I didn't realize how unique of a situation it was to record there. But now, of course, decades later, I'm just like, oh, wow, that was such a cool opportunity. I mean, so many records have been recorded there. We even saw the vaults where the tapes were stored, like the old Creedence reel-to-reel tapes. And it was just incredible, man. Such an incredible situation. Yeah. And that record came out, and we're lucky it like took off and people paid attention to it and like bought it, and started even more and more people, like there was a progression of people come to see us that started to go up more and more. And then that album, Barfly and 28 Teeth, had a lot to do with that, like just the distribution and people latching onto the songs. And yeah, man, it was a really cool opportunity.
Yeah, my friend Ed quoted that album as being one of his major influences back in the day.
Oh wow, right on. That makes me so happy to hear.
Right. And it's so relatable. I mean, growing up in small towns in Missouri, listening to the song My Town, it just kind of calls to you.
Yeah, I mean, every place we went, on tour, and to this day, when our singer John like says, yeah, this next one's called My Town, it's about San Diego, but it's also about your town, like wherever we be at. It's like, this one's for all our Philly friends, when we play in Philly, or this one's for all our friends, here in Honolulu, if we play in Hawaii, or just wherever. I think it's something about the song like affects people in that way. Maybe makes them feel nostalgic or something. I don't know, but
yeah, gives you a peace of mind that
yeah,
maybe.
I hope so. That's the ultimate goal.
Word. Yeah, it's fucking great album. Great. Good album. And then you released another EP after that in '98, Past the Dutchie.
Yeah, so that was, see, 4 songs that we didn't release on 2018 that were recorded at that time. And then we also recorded with this guy, Howard Benson. We went to his studio out in Calabasas. And Howard he's a huge producer, like one of the probably most successful rock producers around. But at that time, he was, a rising force in the industry. He had recorded Less Than Jake, I think, and a few other bands that were known to us, and we ended up working with him. And so we recorded Paso Dutchie there. I can't remember exactly why we re-recorded it. I think it might have been a request from our label at the time. They like really loved the song, but they wanted to get, you know, another take on it. And so yeah, we put that out. It just kind of I think it came out a full year after we released 28 Teeth. But yeah, it was just back in those days, you know, we wanted to just release as much as we could when we had the opportunity.
Those were those 6 songs slapped. I love that EP. Right.
Oh, man.
Right. Plus there's a song with my name at Rocket Billy.
Yeah.
Right. Great song. Great song.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Rocket Philly. Throw a rocket. Throw a rocket Philly.
But yeah, I fucking love that EP. And I loved your interpretation of the song, you know. Plus, who doesn't love a song about smoking weed?
Right on. Thanks. Yeah, that was, you know, I think we were inspired by Musical Youth, but they took that song from much earlier, Past the Coochie. I think it was like, I want to say the Israelites, or there was, oh man, why am I forgetting the name of that artist? But yeah, it's just like a standard that has been interpreted, and you could go back far and far in time and find versions of that song where, you know, Dutchie was a pot that people would cook food for the family. It was like a communal cooking pot. So that's where that line, you know, how does it feel when you got no food, is like, that's that idea. But, you know, it's like, then, you know, the Past the Coochie, which preceded the Musical Youth version, you know, yeah, I mean, you can interpret that any number of ways, but we interpret it as like food for your soul, or, you know, smoking the left-handed cigarette, or yeah, that kind
Well, yeah, I mean, I always pass the pot to the left, you know.
of right on. Yeah.
Yeah, let's get into Libido 1999.
Sure. It was just after we got off, we stopped touring for 28 Teeth and the Pasadena record. And I think at some point we went back. Yeah, we just started writing more songs. And we ended up recording that album here at a studio in San Diego in Encinitas. It's called Big Fish Studio. And you know, there are a lot of more there's a lot of recordings that came out of that, like Blank recorded Dude Ranch, I think that record they recorded there. I think Jewel recorded there. Lots of bands like POD recorded there. And it's just this low-key awesome studio in this guy's house who lives, yeah, like kind of out in Encinitas in the country. And yeah, it was a fun experience. And yeah, it was just part of that whole era of recording music and going on tour. And I love that record. To this day, I think it stands up really well. I love just remembering how much of an effort we put into that. And Howard Benson helped us with that one as well. We had a producer from the East Coast who calls himself Stiff Johnson, and he recorded the first G Love and Special Sauce record, and he recorded actually a couple of his records. And I think that's how we found out about him. And he recorded some other stuff. So he came out, and yeah, it was, it was a more relaxed kind of vibe, I think, because we were back in our hometown recording instead of in Berkeley or LA.
Word.
I want to go.
followed that one up with a live album, Hellos and Goodbyes.
Oh yeah, so that was yeah, we had recorded a show in Japan that we played, and at the time our singer John and his then wife, they wanted to have a record label, so they wanted to take the sound board recording and release it as a live record, which they did, and then it went out of print. So yeah, that one is just kind of like, maybe you could find it on eBay, or those types of places, or in a used record bin, like a 1 cent for a CD kind of bin. But yeah, that was just another it was the first foray into John's label, Off Ramp Records. And yeah, that was mostly why we did that. But it definitely reminds me of the fun shows we played in Japan back in those days.
On a Mission. It was a comp, 2001, but it was mostly songs from Barfly and what was it? What was on that one? I tried to do research the best I could, but like I said, I worked so many hours this week that I wasn't able to hunt down and listen to everything. Like, I couldn't find the Buck Naked demo to listen to, and I couldn't find this On a Mission comp.
Yeah, the On a Mission comp was a comp, kind of like a compilation of stuff that we had released on Tang. And we put it out because we were going to the UK to do a tour there. And I can't remember the label. It might have been, well, I want to say Moon, but Moon Ska was Bucket's label here in New York.
It was Moon Ska Europe.
Was that Moon Ska Europe? Yeah, it must have been on Moon Ska Europe. So they pressed a bunch of those. I have no idea what happened to that record, or I think we had copies of it while we were on tour there. But yeah, I don't know. If you can find a copy, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, like I wasn't able to even listen to it, but I was just assuming that it was probably just the re-releases of all the old stuff off the first album, right? Nothing re-recorded.
Yeah, I think I can't remember exactly how it worked, but somehow Curtis from Tang, yeah, either licensed it to Moon or owed someone something and was like, hey, go ahead and put out, it was just one of those things that came up, an opportunity, and we're like, okay, yeah, we're going to go ahead and do this tour. So if you want to have CDs available, to sell there or to distribute in the UK, then cool.
Word. So there was a bit of a break before you released your next album, Sustain, which I'm sorry, I kind of slept on that album till relatively recently. I don't think I realized that even came out until Fundamental came out. And,
oh, okay, cool.
Right, so I slept on that one for some years. I apologize, but it was a great album, Sustain, 2007.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm stoked you like it. It was yeah, at that point, it was about time that we recorded a new record. We had a lot of songs that we'd been working on, and we recorded it at the same place that we recorded Songs in the Key of Re and Barfly, at this little studio out here in El Cajon. And the studio is no longer there, but because the owner moved to Spain recently, or Portugal. But anyway, yeah, we recorded all the stuff there, and then we had Bill Stevenson. Well, the dudes that run oh man,
The blasting range.
Blasting Lab. Yeah, the Blasting Lab guys, they mixed it and mastered it for us. And we were so stoked with how it came out. I love that record to this day. Of course, it's I mean, we still play several songs from that record live. Like we play I'm Not Dead, Scream from the Suburbs, Cook Me into the Bowl. Definitely. And then sometimes we'll play Let's Drink, depending on how much time we have. But yeah, that was one of the ones where we're just like, we're so excited because it had been a good well, probably 7 years ish since we had released any new material before that. And
Yeah, 8 years. The Libido came out in '99, and that was 2007. So
yeah, so it'd been a little while. And you know, when you're a band, it's just like I was saying earlier, you know, we focus on playing live. That's our favorite thing. Just because, you know, each show is unique, one-time performance of those songs and all that. But recording's another part of our, you know, our personality. So we're just like, man, we got all these songs, let's record it, and it'll be exciting. And so yeah, we put that out on Asian Man. We just, because we were friends with Mike Park. We still are, of course. Hey Mike, if you watch this. And solid guy. And he was just like, yeah, man, I'd love to put it out. So we put it out on Asian Man. And yeah, it wasn't, you know, a hugely promoted record outside of us just touring and selling it at our shows, which is fine, you know. I think the people that love that the people that love that record, they really dig it, you know. And so that's just makes me happy.
Sustained, great album. 12 years before you released another album after that.
Yeah, a lot of time passed. Our original drummer who had left in 98 came back into the band. And so this was our first album with Steve back behind the kit. And yeah, Fundamental, it was just like, at the time we were kicking around an idea of like, well, let's record a record. And we recorded a song for a compilation, this label called Cleopatra Records, which has been around for like 30 years, based in LA. And they asked us if we wanted to release a full length, and we just said, yeah, let's do that. And so yeah, Fundamental was born from that.
Word. And it was a great album. I noticed it really leaned into a lot more reggae tracks, it felt like, than a lot of your other albums. Like you leaned into it more. So
Okay. Yeah. I mean, definitely there was some reggae influenced stuff on there. But I think all our records have some of that. But yeah, I think specifically, well, like our former trumpet player, who is also our producer. So he produced Fundamental. He's, you know, an OG record or an OG reggae guy. That was his first, or one of his first musical loves. And I think that influenced some of the sounds on Fundamental, like his kind of the ideas he had to approach our sounds. And I remember, you know, working with him from a guitar perspective, like really stripping down the stuff that I was playing to like make it really more of a traditional, simple, like reggae approach on some of those songs. But yeah, I mean, there's also some pretty ferocious music on that record too. I love the two extremes, you know. It's just like, I think of bands like Bad Brains, who would do that, you know. They would just play this incredible hardcore music. Not that there's incredible hardcore music on Fundamental, but you know, the idea of playing like this punk rock thing and then breaking it down and chink, ka-chinka, ka-chinka, you know, and it's just then going back to crack, 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 crack. So it's like that kind of thing influenced some of my writing on that record too.
Word. And it was a fucking great album. It was great. and like I said, it helped me realize that I had missed out on Sustain, so I gotta review that one because Fun Day Mental was fucking great.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. We all do. Tony too, who has retired, but still just one of our brothers, you know. But yeah, he put so much work into that record. I'm just so happy that people love it, you know.
Word, and it's great. It's great. Followed that up in 2022 with another live album, 572 Days Later.
Yeah, so we you know, during COVID, um obviously the world shut down. It was a crazy time, and we relied on each other to start writing songs. So we hadn't played together in the same room in 572 days, which is just insane for us. So like we wrote the album that we're releasing in 2 weeks, 14 new songs. Those all came from the depths of the COVID demos. Like we just were passing tracks back and forth and finally realized we had like over 20 songs. Meanwhile, when we finally had the ability to get together and play, and Cleopatra, as part of our deal with them, you know, they asked if we could do a live record, which didn't happen because of mostly to do with COVID, but just various other things. So we ended up going into the studio to do like just like, hey, we haven't played songs together in 572 days. Let's see what happens and let's record it. And we got some really cool sounds, man, some really raw, like just moments. And it was incredible to be back with those guys. I remember such a sense of relief, like, okay, we can still do this, you know, because over 570 days of not playing music live with your buddies, it's just like, man, that's a long time.
Yeah. So tell me about this new album. Like comes out on the 16th. You got one single out now and it's fucking great. Yeah, give us the lowdown on it.
Sure. We you know, I was saying earlier, we wrote a lot of the songs during the COVID lockdown period. And then once that whole period was over and we started playing again, you know, we were focused on, let's record this. We want to record it and put it out. And so, yeah, it was just kind of like a long road to recording. We recorded the album actually twice because the first time just didn't produce the right result that we were looking for. And the second time, you know, we ended up having it mixed by this guy, Mike Park, again, our old homie. He like introduced me to this guy, Ryan Paris, who's mixed, you know, like Bruce Lee Band. And I think he also mixed, there's a bunch of other bands he's mixed. And I just loved what I heard, how he interpreted the sound. So, and we all did. So he ended up mixing it for us and mastering it. And yeah, it was recorded over at 3 different studios, one in Las Vegas, one in here in San Diego, and then another up here in Encinitas. And yeah, just self-produced. We just love it. It's just like so beautiful and ferocious at the same time. And you know, I just love the record. I can't wait for you to hear the whole thing. I think Razorface was like kind of a unique song on that record. The rest, there's a lot of ska and a lot of ska punk songs on the record. I just can't wait for people to hear it. I think people are going to love it.
and I can't wait to hear it. I can't wait to hear it. I'm excited.